Stocks are rallying ahead of that decision. This would, of course, be the central bank's second rate cut this year. This time, though, it's coming without the benefit of some key economic data amid the government shutdown.
The Board of Governors is meeting as we speak, and we're expecting to hear from Fed Chair Jay Powell next hour on this decision. Right now, let's bring in CNN's Matt Egan, who is at the Federal Reserve here in Washington. Matt, what can you tell us?
Well, Boris and Brianna, we're less than an hour away from what is widely expected to be another quarter-point interest rate cut from the Federal Reserve. The market is pricing in about a 98% chance of a cut today, just 2% chance of no move at all. But what is unusual here is that the Fed is operating in a bit of an information vacuum right now. For the first time since the 1930s, when the Fed's rate-setting committee was established, the Fed is making a decision on interest rates without the benefit of that monthly jobs report that officials rely on. I mean, the jobs report is kind of like the Fed's North Star, and that is what guides them on whether or not to raise or lower interest rates. But because of the shutdown, we haven't even seen the September jobs report yet, and it's almost November. It's not just the jobs report, though. There's weekly unemployment claims, consumer spending, and many of the inflation indicators. All of them have been delayed. So right now, the Fed, which likes to say it's data dependent, is operating mostly in the dark. Still, though, interest rates are expected to come down today. This would lower interest rates to the lowest level in 3 years. And this would certainly be good news for consumers, for people who are trying to pay down credit card debt and they're paying very high interest on that. For people with home equity lines of credit, mortgage rates, which are really controlled by the market, they've already come down to 1-year lows. The president, he has signaled that he's not going to be satisfied with a quarter-point cut. Take a listen to some comments he made overnight.
Jerome too late, Powell, but he's out of there in another couple of months. We'll be very happy about that. We'll appoint somebody that we all like, because we should have the lowest interest rates of any country, because without us, there are no other countries, really. I mean, the whole thing falls apart.
Now, not totally clear what he means by there are no other countries, but look, rates obviously have started to come down in the United States, but he's right that rates are higher in the U.S. than they are in some other major economies. Of course, especially because inflation remains way too high, right? The cost of living is one of the core frustrations of voters right now. Inflation's at 3%, not the 2% it's supposed to be at. Remember, Boris and Brianna, the reason the Fed is cutting is not because they think inflation has been defeated. It's because they're worried about the health of the job market. Back to you.
And Matt, it's especially hard to gauge the health of the job market when you don't have jobs reports, right? We haven't gotten one since before September. Talk to us about that challenge for the Fed governors.
Yeah, it is certainly making life more difficult for the Fed officials because, again, they say they're data dependent, but there's no data to be dependent on, at least not when it comes to the official government statistics. There are some alternative private numbers, such as the private payroll numbers that could put out by ADP, but they're really no substitute for those official numbers. Now, one thing to remember when it comes to the job market is, despite those mass layoffs that were announced just yesterday by Amazon, right now, by all indications, unemployment and layoffs, they've remained relatively low. The most recent jobless claims that we got a month ago were pretty low. The real issue right now appears to be a lack of hiring, right? Hiring has been very low. I speak to college students who graduated back in the spring of 2024, and they say they've been looking for a job for a year and they just can't find one, or they've had to take one that's really not enough to pay the bills. And one of the problems, of course, when it comes to hiring is the fact that there's just so much uncertainty right now, including in part because of the president's historically high tariffs. Some executives do think that that's one of the things that's holding companies back from hiring. And so now we wait to see what the Fed says, not just about interest rate cuts likely today, but what's it going to take for further interest rate cuts in the months ahead. And I'll be interested to hear what Fed Chair Jerome Powell says about how he's operating in this information vacuum and what indicators he's looking at as the government shutdown continues. Back to you.
Yeah, we'll definitely be looking for that. Matt Egan at the Fed, thank you. And ahead, prosecutors in Paris just revealed some new details on the museum robbery seen around the world. We have the latest on the suspects who've been arrested in the Louvre jewel heist. Plus, after months of economic chaos, President Trump is set to meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and while trade will be front and center, other important issues could come up. Stay with us.